Yeah, it's me. I'm Erik Friederich. I was born in Kalispell, Montana back in 1961. The first baby food I ever ate was bear meat and potatoes ground up in a blender. I'm sure the kids nowadays would, just love it, I'm sure.
Was it good? How did it taste?
I don't know. I was a baby.
You were a baby, you don't remember.
I must have liked it because I never ate store-bought baby food. I like to do a lot of things, so these are some of the dioramas that I've built.
What's your favorite diorama that you've built?
I think this one of the Venus rocket landing on Venus. I use that foam insulation in a can, and then it comes out a little bit, and then it expands. And then I just have to sand it and paint it or whatever. This one here, I can turn lights on that one. Yeah, it's like a wrecked planet or something. This is another one I'm working on right now. Well, I haven't worked on it for a long time, but it's an old haunted house. Really, it's the house from Psycho. It's not done yet. I still have to do some repainting, and then I'm building a crash site here. There's two little alien bodies here, but I haven't painted them. See, they don't stand out. I'm kind of colorblind.
You're kind of colorblind?
Yeah. Sometimes I have to ask somebody else the color.
Yeah.
You know, I've accidentally put purple where I should have put black, and
okay.
It comes out kind of funny.
Yeah.
These are Marvel Select, but they're Marvel Select. The other ones are Marvel Legends. This came out when Wolverine came out, or X-Men Origins, and that's Ultron, so that's come out a long time ago. Then I got Gambit, which is kind of a hard to get one, I guess. Now this is older. This one here, this Doctor Strange, it's Marvel Legends, but it's one of the first Marvel Legends. That's how come the boxing looks different. I found this one of Black Panther and Winter Soldier. I found them at a yard sale. Yeah, they were $10 each, so I bought them.
Wow.
Then I got the Green Goblin, and I have the alternate Green Goblin. It's kind of, it's different. It's like two different things. This one, he's got Peter Parker in a rope.
You have all these props. We talked a lot about you doing the special effects and doing these different things. Makeup, we were just talking about makeup, and you've done that a lot. When did you really develop an interest in those things, into kind of that area of creative work?
Well, since I was little, I've always been into monsters and horror and stuff like that. And I made my first mask in 1986 is when I made my first mask. I sculpt them out and pour them up in liquid latex and then paint them up. They come out pretty good. It's a lot of work, so.
How long does a mask take to make?
About a week.
A week?
From the first.
How does that work?
Well, I put in several days sculpting it. And once I get it sculpted, I pour it up in plaster and make a negative mold. And then I just paint them up by hand. Sometimes I'll put little special effects into the masks themselves, like blood bladders or veins.
Like details, kind of bring them to life.
I'm working on one now that I pulled it out, and now I've trimmed it, and it needs to be painted.
So what is the easiest aspect of all this work?
Well, if you enjoy it, it's all easy. Then I got these hanging on my wall. That's an older one. This is like from 98. So it's this one and that one. I keep boxes of the models that I make. Then my haunted gallery. This is a zombie here. It comes apart, but now here's a Spider-Man.
I make this look easy. Courtesy of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Gosh, I make this look easy.
And then I got another Green Goblin Masterworks. Here's the 4 Ghostbusters, the originals, and then I got a few of these with the real clothes on them. This one's from, I think this one's from like a 98 collection, 95. That's a 95. And then I worked for 4 years for the Diabetes Foundation Haunted House down in Utah. I was makeup advisor and special effects technician.
What does that mean exactly?
I was in charge of as much makeup on other people as I could be, so I had assistants who would do makeup also. I had 2 other people that would do makeup, because you had a lot of people working in there, and they all most of them are in makeup, you know. And some of them, the easy parts when they do their own before they come, but it's always fun to do a makeup and see what it turns out doing the makeup right on the flesh, making a mask, so to speak, on the flesh instead of pour it up in plaster.
Yeah, like direct application.
Yeah.
So what's the most difficult part of doing this stuff? Like the technical aspect. Like forget about like enjoying it, but like just as far as like the technical aspect of doing this work, what is like the most difficult thing to accomplish and to get done?
I think the painting, probably. Between sculpting and pouring it up, cleaning out the mold, pouring it up, and then you got to paint after you trim the mask, you have to paint it. And that's probably the part that it always seems to be that between the making of the mask and painting, I seem to drop interest for a while and come back to it, but I always get them done.
So how would you describe your emotional state while you're doing this creative stuff, like versus like doing other things?
Well, it calms me down. I'm able to create freely, and that's, I think, because it calms me down so much.
Yeah.
For a while I had voices screaming in my head at me, and that wasn't good. I guess I should show you my guardian here.
What is your favorite creative thing that you've ever done?
Well, working for the Diabetes Foundation Haunted House was really cool every year. I worked at Utah State University for a year as a janitor, and that was pretty cool because you had a lot of free time. My dad he was maintenance man for the Taggart Student Center at the Utah State University, and I got on there, and my dad had his office up on the 3rd floor, and I was a janitor, and my friend Jeff, every morning at 7 o'clock, we'd go up on the 3rd floor staring out the big windows over the campus, smoking a joint, you know.
Really?
And just nobody was around at that time, you know. So it was kind of neat. And you just sat up there and looked out these big, huge windows at the campus before everybody's running around on it. I worked at USU for a time back when I was in my 20s, and then again in my 40s I was an artist's model for the Fine Arts Center.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
It was a good job.
What did you do exactly?
Took off my clothes and stood there.
What?
Took off my clothes and stood there.
Is this a joke or are you being serious?
No, I'm serious.
You're serious?
I had, back when I was in my 20s, I had 3 different teachers that I worked for as a model for their class. And one was a sculpting class and another one was a drawing class. Each one of those was 3 hours. And then I worked for a private studio in Logan, Utah. I was a model for several classes a week for these elderly ladies. I wasn't nude though. They gave me a pair of mini brief shorts, you know, bikinis.
But for the other positions, you were nude.
Yeah, up at the university I was. It didn't bother me.
Like it had no effect on you psychologically or emotionally? Mm-mm. You didn't feel any sort of insecurity? Mm-mm. So a lot of people in that position would feel a lot of insecurity. What was your emotional state? Like, was it just whatever, or how would you describe yourself?
I would just stand there and look at all the different, like, sculptings they would do of me, or pictures. It's amazing how it differs from one person to another. You know, one guy sculpted me and it made me look like Spider-Man. I mean, not with the costume, but the shape of the body, you know.
Yeah.
Another guy drew me, and I was big and fat with a crown on my head and a pentagram on a necklace here. Of course, I always wore a pentagram back then. These are pretty old. These are from, all three of these are from about 98, 97, 98.
Really?
On the top shelf. This is an older Venom Spider-Man figure that came out in the 90s. I picked these up, these three, Phantom, Ming, and Flash Gordon. They didn't even put them on the shelves to sell. They put them right on closeout for $10 each.
Really?
Yeah, they didn't even put them out on the shelves.
You've done a lot of different things. Do you believe that we're alone in the universe or not? What is
No.
You believe that we're not alone in the
Yeah.
universe? Why?
Well, I've seen UFOs, and I can't figure them out. I remember seeing, in fact, where we live now, when I was growing up, there was a lot of times we saw them. There was one time that me and my friends were playing Army at the gravel pit, and it was in the afternoon, and we were up on a gravel hill, and we looked off to the west and saw these three discs in a line, and then in the blink of an eye, they were in a line, and in the blink of an eye, they were one above another, and then in the blink of an eye, they were gone.
Can you describe any other experiences?
Well, Sam and I were laying on our sleds in the winter one night, looking up at the sky, and there was a blinking light way up there, and there was another light following it, and all of a sudden it was like the blue caught up with the other one, and then there was like a flash, and then there wasn't any of them, as if somebody blew them up. See, living up here back then you were real isolated. There wasn't that many people up the Yak then. And now you go up there and it's like houses everywhere. It's crazy. And then I have these over here. They're figures in these boxes. They open up like a book, kind of.
Right.
So you can see everything that's in it. You don't have to take it out.
Interesting.
In the movie, there were 3 or 4 of these creatures, so they all wore the same clothes, so but they come with 4 different heads. This is the Evil Dead 2 Ash with his chainsaw arm, and the Necronomicon. Here's a Karloff and Frankenstein. The thing is, they look like Karloff in the makeup. I mean, it looks like you got Karloff just standing right there. On top here, I got Friday the 13th, Part 2. Here's what is this one? Nightmare on Elm Street. I still got more to collect. I saw a few more in there just recently. They're at Walmart down in the music section. Here's a Michael Myers with a couple different heads. Some of those I have in loose figures, but you don't want to rip these things open. They even went and made King Kong. I thought they should get a little lady to put in his fist or something, you know.
You've mentioned to me before that Idaho is kind of like a decade behind.
Even in Troy, Montana, it was like they were like 10 years behind. And this whole area, Montana and Idaho up in this area, just seems like they're about 10 years behind the times. It's crazy. I mean, it's like they don't want this state to succeed or something, or it's just weird. It was pretty nice back then. Now you don't know who's who anymore.
What's the biggest difference between modern life now and life growing up?
We didn't have computers.
That's a big one.
We didn't have cell phones. Hell, that was a communicator like Captain Kirk as far as we were concerned. And the first cell phones that came out looked like a communicator from Star Trek. Well, in the late 70s, early 80s, they came out with what they called the brick. And it was the first cell phone, and it looked like a brick. It's about that long and that wide. You'd dial the number and connect, but there wasn't people to connect with, really. These are all Conan figures right here. These are some older Marvel figures that I still have more to put out. And these are marble figures from the early days, 80s mostly. Here's some zombie figures like The Walking Dead. Yeah, that one Jason that's in one of those boxes, he's the one that looks like that. Here's a shrunken head that I made.
You made the shrunken head?
Yeah, right, like this.
What is it made from?
Liquid latex, same as I use on the masks. And then I just painted it, and then I punched hair through the rubber so it looks like it's coming out of the skin. Well, I was raised in the mountains. The first time I ever went and lived in a city was about 1980. I went to Tampa, Florida, and lived down there for a year. Even that was kind of different. Of course, everything in the city was different to me. I wasn't used to it, so I was there about 9 months, and then my parents had moved to Utah, so I moved to Utah, and I ended up living there until 84 when I helped my parents move to Montana, and then I went back down on a bus and got married. Then we separated, and I came up to Kalispell. 6 months later, she came up to Kalispell, and we lived in Kalispell about 2 years. Then we moved to Utah because she wanted to have our son around her parents and family, and we never made it back to Montana.
Oh, really?
And I got to where I really hated Utah.
Oh,
it was just really bad, and I was there for 20-some years.
Oh, gosh.
The people are really different, and not in a good way. There's a big gay population because of the Utah State University. When your dad and I went down to see Bart a bunch of years back, we were in a grocery store and we were getting a couple things, and as we were going through the checkout, the guy at the checkout said, "Are you guys together?" Well, your dad took it like this guy's calling us gay, and he was so mad. We got out to the car and his face was just purple, and he's going, "I can't believe it. I just can't. Did you hear what he said? Do you know what he was implying?" And I'm just laughing, man. And your dad, Tom, he's just getting revved up about it, you know, and I finally said, "Okay, just settle down. Oh, I'm going to go back in there and tell him." "No, you're not. You're not going back in the store." "Oh, what if I need something?" "You don't need anything. Just stay here." So I never let him go back in the store unless he did it on one of his early morning meditation runs. But yeah, he still gets wild about that one to this day. And then I'm into Kiss, so I got a whole bunch of Kiss stuff. This was on a $70 item that I found on sale for $40. It has guitars, drums, seats, yeah, a whole bunch different hands.
Random question, and I want to talk about your collection. If you could time travel to any point in time, where would you go and why?
I think I'd go back to when I was a kid.
What would you do?
Watch myself as I was a kid.
Just watch?
Yeah.
You wouldn't interfere or do anything, you would just watch?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of things I would never happened, because these were pretty bad things that happened. They wouldn't have been missed.
So we'll talk about your collection. So you have a really big collection, and this isn't even all of it.
No, I had it all up at one time, and it just was, all the walls were filled, and there was no room to put anything. I do leave my McFarlanes out. I don't know why, because I like them.
Who is that?
Oh, he's a guy who worked for Marvel Comics for several years, and then he created Spawn. And then they made the movie of Spawn, and then he came out with a whole line of toys, and he's created hundreds of action figures. When he first started out, it was original. It was all his stuff. Now he's doing a collaboration with DC Comics.
What's your favorite McFarlane that you have?
Yeah, I think that Evil Dead right there. It's of Evil Ash from Army of Darkness. the
Really?
Evil Dead series. This one's from Spawn. And then this is still a McFarlane, but it's a different author. This one's a McFarlane that's Spawn. This is a McFarlane. This is the Dracula playset from McFarlane. These are McFarlane's here. These 3 Batman and a Black Adam. Yeah, but he's kind of the first guy that put real detail into his figures.
Like hyper detail?
Hyper detail, yeah.
Interesting.
And everybody else who made action figures started doing ultra detail on them. I started, my son, when he was 3, he had different boxes that I bought him for his toys. He had like the Turtles and the Terminator, G.I. Joes, just a whole bunch of stuff, and he grew up with me collecting, and that way he started collecting. So now he has a big collection because I'll send him figures for his birthday and stuff. So, and then he got a couple of his friends into collecting, so I kind of started a trend.
How long have you been building your collection? Very big collection. How long have you been doing that?
Well, the collection I had up until about a year ago, I started collecting when I first came here from back in 2005, and I started with a couple marble figures. I started getting so many loose figures that I'd take out of the box that I didn't have any room for too many figures, so I just started leaving them all in boxes. I got a lot of boxes. Figures in boxes. So now I just hang the boxes up or I put them away too.
What's your favorite piece from your collection?
I think my most favorite one is a reproduction of a sculpture that H.R. Geiger did. H.R. Geiger was an artist, and he sculpted really strange things. He was the one who did all the scenery for the movie Alien. Yeah, the tubular kind of stuff in the background. So yeah, I bought that in California. I have not seen another one.
Really?
I've never seen another one. Of course, I know he made them.
I'll ask this question. I'm going to ask a more unrelated question. What's the oldest piece of your collection?
Probably my 2 lamps. They belonged to my great-grandparents when they lived in Germany, and they brought them over here with them. They're pretty old. Also, this picture here, my great-grandfather painted it. Herman Bautner, he was one of the top lithographers back in the 30s and 40s in New York. One of the top ones in New York.
Interesting.
That drawing right there of that mountain man or whatever, he did that.
What would you say your biggest regret is, and what would you have done differently?
You know, I always thought I had regrets, but when I come to think of it, I really can't think of any. Life is what it is. Yeah, took me a long time to learn that.
Do you believe in God?
Yeah.
How would you describe God? What would you describe God to be? Like, what has your experience of God been?
I'm always talking to God, so I have an experience every day.
What does that feel like? What does that look like?
It brings me a lot more hope than it used to. I got the fear really bad reading that doggone Google News. You see all these things, Yellowstone's gonna blow, a meteor's gonna hit, a war's gonna start. It's all promoted to make you feel fear. I was talking to my best friend when we grew up together, and he said, yeah, the whole thing is geared toward making people afraid.
What would you say is the most important message that the world needs to hear? What is the single message that everyone needs to know? And what is...
There is hope. Simple.
That's a really good one, man. That's really good. Thank you so much for coming on to Interesting People. I really like it a lot. If everyone enjoyed that conversation, definitely feel free to comment and let us know what you think. But I'm definitely looking forward to bringing you back for some future projects. I hope you're looking forward to it as well. Thank you so much for coming on here, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.